Part 142. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Liao. Chapter 1421. 2 years later, Master Mu's condition worsened again and he became bedridden. Mu Zishuan came back from abroad and formally took over the Mu's business. Compared with before, he has grown taller and darker. He has lost his youthful thinness and elegance, and has become a tall and strong man with cold eyes and aggressive aura. Bai Wei was afraid of him for some reason. Especially the way he looked at her was as aggressive as before leaving, as if he loved her, but also seemed to hate her. She is not good at dealing with such a complicated and sensitive relationship, so she can only try to avoid him and avoid him. The change of mother fell into the eyes of the young Murongcheng, and he also remembered it in his heart. Murongcheng began to hate Mu Zishuan, because every time his mother saw Mu Zishuan, she would be frightened, and would be in a daze from time to time, muttering strange things to herself. It was a cloudless day that day. Bai Wei took the scissors and cut a few tulips in the garden, preparing to decorate the bedroom where Master Mu rests. Master Mu's health is so poor that he can hardly even sit in a wheelchair, so he can only lie on the bed, and placing flowers and plants in the room will make him feel more comfortable. She held up a bunch of flowers and was about to go back, but when she turned around, she found Mu Zishuan standing in front of her, staring at her expressionlessly. Bai Wei panicked suddenly, the bright tulips scattered all over the ground, the scissors almost fell off, fell in the air and was caught by Mu Zishuan, holding them firmly in his hands. He reached out and handed over the scissors. Bai Wei hesitated for a while, then took the other end of the scissors. Twitching slightly, the scissors did not move at all. Bai Wei pursed her lips, and looked up at Mu Zishuan. Mu Zishuan remained silent. The two stood facing each other like this, stalemate in the garden. Suddenly a group of black shadows flew over and hit Mu Zishuan's back with a slap, splashing mud spots in all directions. Bai Wei opened her eyes wide in surprise. Mu Zishuan raised his eyebrows slightly, and looked sideways. Murongcheng stood in the distance, his childish face was full of resentment. "Stay away from my mother." Mu Zishuan smiled, with a hint of indifference and sarcasm. He lowered his eyes, gently wiped the mud off his shoulders, turned and left. Murongcheng was like an aggressive little leopard, staring at Mu Zishuan's back vigilantly until he walked away. Then Murongcheng ran up to Bai Wei and asked, "Mom, did he try to bully you just now?" "No." Bai Wei held the scissors, feeling her fingers stiff. She moved her finger joints slightly, then squatted down slowly, picked up the tulips on the ground, and said softly, "He didn't bully Mom, he just talked to Mom. Rongcheng, don't hit people with mud again, that's rude, you know." The little boy's eyes were full of cruelty that didn't match his age. "It's just mud, not stone. No matter what it is, it's wrong to use it to hit people." Bai Wei had a headache and felt helpless about her son's temper. "I really don't know who you look like." Murongcheng didn't take it seriously, and asked, "Mom, what did he talk to you just now?" Bai Wei was startled when she heard this. After a while, she stood up slowly, held her son's little hand, and walked back step by step. "I didn't say anything, let's go back," he said. "Are you taking care of him with these hands? Must be very tired." "Tired?" "Yes, very tired. These hands turned over and scrubbed him every day, massaged his limbs, cooked food for him, woke up countless times in the middle of the night, ran to Mr. Mu's bed in a panic, and carefully tested his breathing. Feeling the gentle ups and downs of breathing, her tense nerves will relax. Worried that he would be choked on phlegm while he was asleep, and die silently. If so, what should she do? Her life was like a mist, and Mr. Mu was a light in the mist. He told her that she was his caretaker, so she only needed to take care of him without distraction. But this light is about to go out, and at that time, who will guide her? Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1422. Character often determines destiny. Bai Wei's character is undoubtedly passive, and her fate is also passive. Simple kindness is a valuable quality, but cowardice and timidity make people angry. Master Mu didn't have more time to wait for Bai Wei to learn to be strong. After 2 years of lingering illness, Master Mu finally passed away. The death of the head of the family will inevitably involve the distribution of the estate. When Mu's family was busy preparing for the funeral, Luo Junkai hired someone to secretly pry open Master Mu's safe, and got the will that she had been thinking about all along. He didn't open it immediately, but hurriedly took the will to Mu Zishuan, and put it in front of him as if asking for credit. "Son, look what this is." Luo Junkai couldn't hide her joy. "Your father's will." Mu Zishuan looked a little tired. During the day he greeted relatives and friends, but at night he had to watch in the morning hall. There were thin red threads in his eyes. Seeing the will, his expression was still lazy, and he said lightly, "Are you free? What are you doing with this?" "What do you call it?" Luo Junkai said anxiously. "This is a will. Of course we have to look ahead. What if the old man distributes all the property to others?" Mu Zishuan smiled. "Yes, give it to others. What can you do?" Luo Junkai's eyeballs moved, and her voice was lowered. "If the distribution is unfair, this will, of course we have to change it." Mu Zishuan felt that Luo Junkai was too naive and ridiculous. Although Master Mu is old, he is not confused. There must be other backups when making a will. Maybe it will be placed with the elders in the clan, or it may be placed with a lawyer. If some clauses are changed, people will find out immediately. "It's up to you," he replied lazily, not wanting to pay attention to Luo Junkai. "You child, why aren't you worried at all?" Luo Junkai said anxiously. "The old man is so obsessed with that little vixen, maybe all the family property is given to that vixen." When Bai Wei was mentioned, Mu Zishuan became a little interested. He really wanted to know. Master Mu tried everything possible to take her away, and how would he arrange her when he was about to die? "Then open it and have a look," he said. Luo Junkai tore off the seal, quickly pulled out the document inside, and looked at it impatiently. She didn't know what she saw. She covered her mouth, her eyes were filled with strange brilliance, and laughter escaped from her fingers. "Ha ha." She was almost groggy with joy. Mu Zishuan frowned, took the document from Luo Junkai, browsed through it briefly, and immediately understood why she was so excited. Regarding the distribution of the inheritance, 60% was given to him, and for the remaining sons, Mu Rongcheng got 15%, and Mu Rongxian and Mu Zhenning only got more than 10%. As for Bai Wei's part, there are only some time deposits, and the amount is not too much. Mu Zishuan held the will and remained silent for a long time. This feeling, how should I put it? The lover you regard as precious is easily taken away by others. The person who took it away did not cherish her, but commanded her, squeezed her, made her do the dirtiest and most tiring work, and discarded it after use. There is no intention to deal with the aftermath. At night, Mu Zishuan walked out of the morning hall and came to the garden to get some air. From a distance, I could see the small Western-style building on the other side of the lake, lit with warm orange lights, and I didn't dare to approach, because I didn't want to hear her cry for that man. She should be crying. So weak and timid, she must be lost at this moment. It's really pitiful. Thinking so, Mu Zishuan went back to his study and made a phone call. Set up a fund account for her, and deposit money in it regularly every month. Well, the money will be transferred from my personal account, in name. Mu Zishuan raised his eyes, looked at Mr. Mu in the picture frame on the wall, and said, "In my father's name, save this money for her." Actually, Mu Zishuan misunderstood Master Mu. In the will, Bai Wei was deliberately mean because Mr. Mu knew that Mu's Ishuan was brooding over the past, and he was afraid that his son would have hidden hatred in his heart, so he didn't leave too much money for Bai Wei. In this way, Mu's Ishuan would at least take pity on her instead of adding hatred to her. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1423. Luo Junkai was ecstatic about the will. She really didn't expect such a result. These years, Mu's Ishuan didn't go home all the time. She thought her son had already lost Master Mu's favor. Fortunately, the old man likes children, so Luo Junkai always let her younger son Mu Zening compete with Mu Rongcheng because she didn't want Bai Wei, and Mu Rongcheng became Master Mu's only favorite. She was worried every day that her property would be taken away by others, but she never thought that her son would be the final winner. Even though Luo Junkai didn't get a penny in the will, she has a son. Mu's Ishuan's share, plus Mu Zening's share, more than 70% of the property. Luo Junkai is crazy. This surprise did not last long. Greed always knows no bounds. Luo Junkai, whose mother is expensive based on her son, has straightened her back in Mu's house since then, domineering. She doesn't like Bai Wei, and she doesn't like Mu Rongcheng even more. When she thinks of Mu Rongcheng's 15% property, she feels like a stick in her throat and feels very uncomfortable. Why would a bastard rob her son of the Mu family's property? Luo Junkai tentatively discussed with her son whether to drive Bai Wei and Mu Rongcheng out. Mu's Ishuan smiled lightly and said, "Okay, it happens that it's troublesome because of her fame. You drive her out, and I'll marry her back." Luo Junkai's expression froze suddenly. She looked at Mu's Ishuan in astonishment. Her face was blue and white. She observed Mu's Ishuan's expression very hard, wondering if he was joking, but her son always looked indifferent in front of her, and she couldn't figure it out at all. Don't talk nonsense." Luo Junkai's tongue was knotted, and she forced a smile. "She is several years older than you." Mu's Ishuan glanced at her, and his tone was still calm. "Strange, shouldn't we be more concerned about her seniority than the age gap?" Luo Junkai's heart twitched violently, but she couldn't say a word. She is guilty. Because she once had an affair with Mu Rongxian, she even suspected that what her son said was actually beating her. After this conversation, Luo Junkai was depressed for a while, and didn't bother Bai Wei and Mu Rongcheng again. But the 15% share that Mu Rongcheng got was like a thorn buried in her heart, stabbing her from time to time, making her scratch her heart and lungs. In recent years, paternity testing technology has been introduced from abroad to China. With the market demand, the number of related testing agencies has continued to increase, and Xinjiang City has also opened several. Luo Junkai was moved. Although Master Mu is dead, he was sickly before his death, and the hospital still preserves his pathological tissue, so he is fully qualified to do a paternity test. As long as it is proved that Mu Rongcheng is not Master Mu's son, then the 15% property can be taken back in a legitimate way. Luo Junkai started her own plan. While humiliating and suppressing Bai Wei with words, he spread rumors that Mu Rongcheng was not Master Mu's biological son. Sure enough, Bai Wei couldn't bear it, and after Luo Junkai provoked her once, she promised her to take a paternity test. Luo Junkai was triumphant. "Okay, let's go together if we want to go, lest some people will cheat." She wanted to tear off Bai Wei's pure and weak fake face and trample it under her feet. Why? Obviously they are all women, and they are obviously playing with men secretly. What kind of pure girl are you pretending to be? Luo Junkai really hates Bai Wei. The paternity test needs to wait for 7 working days, and Luo Junkai accompanied Bai Wei during the whole process in order to prevent Bai Wei from cheating. On the day when the results came out, She almost saw victory beckoning to herself. Bai Wei and Murong Cheng were still waiting on the chairs in the corridor, and Luo Junkai couldn't wait to walk in, urging for the paternity test report. I heard that if it is a father and son, the parental authority value must reach 99.99%. When Luo Junkai saw that the bottom value was wrong, the corners of her mouth curled up. She was satisfied and relieved as expected. But after a while, she frowned slightly, and asked the staff beside her, "Your report, what does this mean?" "Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again." Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1424. Oh, here, it means that it does not constitute a father-son relationship, but a paternal relationship, the staff explained. Luo Junkai's face became ugly. "Kinship? What do you mean?" "It's blood relationship, maybe it's grandpa, maybe it's uncle or something, in short, it's people from the patrilineal side." "What is possibility? Isn't the job of your organization to identify people clearly?" "You dismissed me with a possibility," Luo Junkai was furious. "We can only identify whether it is true or not, and there is no way to identify who it is. Not only us, even if you go to other identification institutions, they don't have this kind of technology." Luo Junkai's eyes darkened, and she almost fainted. Bai Wei usually doesn't go outside the door, so it is impossible to get in touch with the relatives of the Mu family. There are only a few men in the family, who else can it be? She thought of Mu Zishuan's joke last time, and also remembered the foolishness between herself and Mu Rongxian that night, and she was so mad that she collapsed. What happened to the men in the Mu family? Everyone likes to play with his father's woman. Is it Mu Rongxian? Impossible. Mu Rongxian didn't have the guts, and the time with her was also because of drinking, so he never dared to mess around under the old man's nose. Is it Mu Zishuan? It's impossible. How old was her son at that time? How could it be possible with Bai Wei? How is this possible? A few thin pages of appraisal report were held tightly by Luo Junkai, veins protruding from the back of her hand, trembling uncontrollably. The servants in the family always praised Bai Wei's son for being beautiful, who looked like Mr. Mu. Luo Junkai snorted. She felt that the servant was either blind or flattering. Thinking about it now, that Murong Cheng really looks like a child from the Mu family, but she refuses to admit it. Sometimes a woman's intuition makes no sense at all, and Luo Junkai's mind is full of the words Mu Zishuan said at the moment. "Okay, you drive her out, and I will marry her back." Crazy. It's crazy. Holding the appraisal report, Luo Junkai walked out in a daze. Seeing her coming out, Bai Wei and Murong Cheng stood up. Their eyes fell on the few pages in her hand. The expression on Bai Wei's face was a little stunned. She always had a clear conscience. If Master Mu said the child was his, it must be his. She wasn't afraid to do a paternity test. However, now that the results are out and the dust has settled, there are inexplicable turmoil in my heart, inexplicably, falling into doubt. Bai Wei took the child by the hand and asked Luo Junkai. The result came out. Luo Junkai looked at her quietly. Her eyes were extremely cold, her fingers holding the report were closing tightly, pinching the paper into balls, and continued to use force, as if she wanted to crush the report to pieces. "Okay." Luo Junkai took a deep breath, and slowly shifted her eyes to Murong Cheng. "Very good, he's the old man's son, so be cruel." After she finished speaking, she clutched the appraisal report and passed Bai Wei without looking back. The high-heeled shoe stepped on the tile floor, making a crisp sound. Step by step, the speed was not fast, but there was a strange panic. Bai Wei watched Luo Junkai walk away, and heaved a sigh of relief. Then, an unknown sense of loss swept over her body, not knowing what she was missing, and what she was looking forward to. The young sun tugged at the corner of her clothes. She suddenly woke up, smiled at him comfortingly, and walked out slowly holding hands. It is a very shameful and angry thing to be questioned about one's life experience. Bai Wei felt guilty for her son, and after leaving the appraisal agency, she took Murong Cheng to go shopping, hoping to buy gifts to compensate him. The streets were crowded with people, Zixi murmured. She seemed to have an illusion, and vaguely heard someone calling her name. Bai Wei, Bai Wei. The voice fluctuated from far away and near, and it came from nowhere. Looking around, I only saw strange faces. Who is calling her? Bai Wei, Miss Bai. Miss Wei. Sister Angel, little baby. Sweetheart. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1425. In both reality and fantasy, she saw a young man standing in the lush green grass with a wanton smile, but she couldn't see his face clearly. What's wrong with her? This is on the street, where did the grass come from? Where did the boy come from? The nostalgic golden song is played in the video store, which is the theme song of a Chinese ghost story. Has she seen the movie? Can't remember, but why is this song so familiar? Bai Wei walked forward in a daze, the singing in her ears met, overlapped, and merged with the music deep in her memory. Life is dreams and longings. In the dream, there are faint tears. Where to go, to find the direction in my heart? The road to the world, happy boy. The road is rough, the sun is not visible on the rough road. In the mud and dust, how many directions does happiness have? A dream-like storm. The road is boundless. Before she knew it, tears were streaming down her face, and she finally couldn't walk anymore. Standing there in a daze, listening to the song in a loop, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. The son grabbed her hands vigorously and called out to his mother, but Bai Wei didn't realize it. She seemed to be completely isolated from this world and fell into another nightmare. When she regained consciousness, she was lying on the hospital bed, looked slightly sideways, and saw her young son lying on the side of the bed, fast asleep. How could you run to the hospital? She was not impressed at all. Get up gently, walk to the door of the ward, and see Mu Zixuan standing outside talking to the doctor. He was wearing a light-colored fine striped shirt, with a suit draped over his arms, and he listened intently to the doctor's explanation. Some progressive memory impairment. When they were sent to the hospital, they said they couldn't remember the way home, and they couldn't remember their own name. Although they gradually recovered their memory after being reminded, the patients needed to ask their family members to be vigilant. It is best to observe for a period of time after returning home. If the symptoms continue to worsen, it may cause cognitive dysfunction in the later stage. Bai Wei was slightly taken aback. Did the doctor mean her? Won't she remember the way home? Everything that happened was so strange, Bai Wei just felt confused. Later, Mu Zixuan handled the discharge procedures for her. He silently picked up the sleeping child, walked out of the hospital, and put it in the car. Bai Wei sat in the back seat with the child, and Mu Zixuan sat in the co-pilot's seat. Probably afraid of waking the child, he whispered some instructions to the driver, took a detour to buy some nutritional supplements, and then drove home. All the way without words. After returning home, Mu Zixuan went to Luo Junkai's room. Knocking on the door lightly, and then pushing the door open, she saw Luo Junkai sitting in front of the dressing table, ready to take off her makeup and go to bed. Half of the makeup was removed, and the thick foundation was pushed away, revealing the original skin color, against which the thick black eyeliner was not wiped off. It looked very scary in the mirror. Where is the paternity test report? Mu Zixuan asked. The movement of Luo Junkai's hands stopped, and then resumed after a while, continuing to wipe her face bit by bit. Throw it away, she said. I wanted to catch her, but I didn't expect it to be the old man's seed. It's so boring. Muse Ishuan didn't show any expression when he heard that, and turned around to leave. Luo Junkai stopped him and stared at his face. Why are you asking this? Don't do anything, just ask casually, he replied lightly and walked out of the room. Listening to the sound of footsteps walking away slowly, Luo Junkai felt the resentment gradually burning in her heart. She couldn't bear it anymore, and waved her hand violently, sweeping a table of cosmetics to the ground. Glass bottles shattered, soaking expensive rugs. Bai Wei, she looked at the mirror, gnashed her teeth and said the name, Bai Wei, Bai Wei. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1426. Unable to drive Bai Wei away, Luo Junkai vented all her hatred on the young Murong Cheng. She thinks that Murong Cheng is the dirtiest and most contemptible thing in the world, because his mother, Bai Wei, took away her husband on the surface, and secretly wanted to take away her son. Murong Cheng grew up in an extreme environment. His personality has become irritable and arrogant, but his eyes are full of hostility at a young age. He also wanted to work hard and take his mother away from this place of right and wrong after being admitted to a good university, but every step of his growth would be trampled into the dust by Luo Junkai. He got good grades, was slandered for cheating, refused to write a review, was expelled from the school, and entered a new school. Luo Junkai would spread unfavorable rumors in the school in advance. The teacher always taunted him, and bad students always made trouble for him. In the end, he was not only expelled from school again, but also sent to a juvenile detention center because a bag of drugs appeared inexplicably in his school bag. He hates Luo Junkai. I hate Mu Zhenning, who is so doted on by Luo Junkai. I hate Mu Rongxian, who will always share his anger with Luo Junkai. Hate the two stupid daughters Mu Rongxian gave birth to with the help of modern medical technology. I hate Mu Zishuan, who is always busy with business outside. Hate the maid whispering in the hallway. Hate gardeners who love to join in the fun in the garden. I hate the security guard with strange eyes at the gate of the courtyard. Hate everyone. He hates everything and everyone in the Mu family. For a while, he also hated his mother, hated her for being weak and useless, hated her memory that short-circuited from time to time, hated her stubbornly staying at Mu's house and refusing to leave. She was always so naive, thinking that this school was not suitable, and changing to another school would solve the problem, but she didn't know that the introducer had already accepted Luo Junkai's favor, and introduced the worst and worst school. No longer willing to listen to his mother's nagging, the young Murong Cheng left home and rode a motorcycle on the streets. He was aimless, and finally came to the river. The Qingjiang River was turbid and turbulent, and the wind on the river was fierce. He sat down on the embankment, with chaotic emotions rushing in his chest, and he had nowhere to vent. He looked down on Luo Junkai. An old woman who is nothing, narrow-minded, greedy and ignorant, has neither brains nor clever means, she can only use tricks that are not on the table to make troubles, her only achievement is to give birth to Mu Zishuan. However, it was also this woman whom he looked down upon that ruined his life and forced him to live on. What a humiliation! How angry! He picked up a stone and threw it into the river with all his strength. The stone didn't even splash much, and it disappeared in an instant. Murong Cheng felt that he was like that rock, no matter how hard he tried, he seemed so insignificant in the turbulent life. I don't know how long he stayed by the river. Bai Wei came to him and advised him softly, "Go home, it's time for dinner." He looked at the sweat on his mother's cheeks, at the red marks on her heels. She was obviously panicked and scared, but she pretended nothing happened in front of him. It was really pitiful. It was so pitiful that Murong Cheng couldn't bear to criticize her anymore. As a mother, she might not be successful, but as a son, he really failed. Thinking about it this way, all emotions turned into powerlessness. Murong Cheng got up slowly, put his hands in his pockets, and walked up lazily. Bai Wei looked at him and smiled, and said, "You look like your father when he was a child." Murong Cheng snorted, and said amusedly, "Mom, you haven't seen Dad when he was a child, how do you know if I look like me?" Bai Wei was stunned. Yes. When she was with Master Mu was already in his 50s. Bai Wei's smile faded a bit, with a hint of bitterness. Her life is like a dream, and she can't tell which is real and which is illusion. Let's go back to eat. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1427. Murong Cheng opened his eyes and saw the familiar ceiling. The lights in the room were dim and warm, and he was in a trance for a while, then came to his senses. This is not when he was a child. He had already grown up, and finally escaped there as he wished. All the haters are gone, and the woman is dead. Mu Zhenning thought it was him who did it, but it was not the case. He just used some means to frame Mu Zishuan and get Mu Zishuan convicted and imprisoned. Luo Junkai lost his greatest support, so he could slowly deal with her and torture her. It's a pity that before he could make a move, Luo Junkai got into a car accident and died so quickly. What a pity. In fact, looking back now, it's not so much that he hates Luo Junkai, it's better to say that what he hates is that period of life, that period of weakness, embarrassment, and extremely humiliating years. Even though those people are all gone, the shadow left on him will always exist in his heart and will never disappear. Mu Zi pushed open the door and came in. Seeing Murong Cheng leaning on the pillow, she couldn't help being slightly taken aback, and asked, "Why are you awake?" She came over and lay down. Murong Cheng took her into his arms and lay down too. "It's okay, I just had a dream, woke up and found that you were not there, and was going to find you. I went to the bathroom, and I took a look at the child. The two little guys didn't stop even when they fell asleep, the quilt was kicked in a mess, and Jiao Jiao is the most obedient." Mu Zigzi babbled, looking up at him, "What dream did you have just now?" Murong Cheng smiled and said, "I dreamed that I was playing on the embankment, and my mother came over and called me home for dinner." Mu Zi also laughed and teased him, "You must have made mom worry a lot when you were young, right?" "Yeah." Murong Cheng's voice was low and hoarse, with a bit of drowsiness. "Because I became a parent myself, I realized that parenting is not easy." Mu Zi hugged him, "Go to sleep, I have to entertain guests tomorrow. Tomorrow is the second birthday party for the twin sons." They entertained many guests, and the ostentation was bound to be great. The president and his wife also came to Xianghai City for the banquet in person. It is said that Mrs. Situ was very dissatisfied and complained why the venue of the birthday party could not be set in Jingling City. The two old people were not in good health, so they would probably only be able to watch the news broadcast. Yes, the birthday of the mayor of Xianghai and the daughter of the president's daughter will of course be on the news, and the banquet will be full of people from the media. At the banquet, there was a train cake that attracted the attention, which was exquisitely made by a pastry master. Tracks are carefully laid on the long dining table, and a motor is installed on the tray under the train cake, so that it can drive along the track continuously, and the cakes in each car have different flavors. Currently, Zhuangjia's habit is to take a few beautiful photos to enjoy herself, but after taking the photo, the cake was missing several knots, so she had to rush to grab a piece of cake. Mu Zi talked with Zhuangjia and Zhang Xinyuan for a while, and then asked the waiter to help take a group photo of the three of them. There was a slight clamor of people not far away. "I don't know what kind of guests came again." Mu Zi turned her head to look, and found that it was Bai Wei, and there was a tall and handsome man beside her. "Auntie Bai is always so beautiful." Zhuangjia was almost insane. "I'm so envious." Zizi, "Who is that man next to your mother?" Zhang Xinyuan couldn't help gossiping, "It looks so right. My mother met a friend not long ago." Muzi smiled ambiguously, "You guys play first, I'll go over and have a look." Grandson's birthday, grandma will of course attend, but Bai Wei looks in her 30s, she is too young for a grandma, and many people present don't recognize her. She brought a friend from a cooking class to attend such a formal occasion as a male companion, presumably to admit this relationship on purpose. Muzi remembered that Bai Wei had mentioned that the other party's name was Pete. Although his ancestral home was in China, he grew up abroad, so he spoke bad Chinese, which always made people laugh. Today was the first time Muzi saw her in person. At first impression, this man looks familiar. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1428. She shook hands with the other party, and Pete smiled shyly and reservedly, "Li Hao." Bai Wei translated for him, Pete said hello. Pete said again, "Wo has seen Li news, hey Li Hai." Muzi was still in a daze. Bai Wei smiled and translated again, "He said he saw your news and praised you for being great." Muzi couldn't help laughing, she pursed her lips and smiled, "Thank you for the compliment." Then Bai Wei took Pete to the banquet hall, and the two talked and laughed. Muzi felt that her mother had changed, she became more talkative and lively. She told Murong Cheng earlier that her mother became younger after meeting Pete, but it was not the case. When you get old, what is aging is not only the appearance of the face, but also an aura that is difficult to describe in words. For example, some people look young, but they feel dull and lack of vitality. Bai Wei is like a pool of water in the backyard of an ancient temple, quiet and distant, warm and beautiful, but she is not young. Now the water in this pond has finally started to ripple, how should I put it, with a bit of playfulness of a little girl. Muzi remembered that Zhang Si always complained about her, saying that when she was a prosecutor, she was very serious and arrogant. How come after meeting Murong Cheng, she was like a broken person, like a little foolish girl? Because I like him. In front of the person you like, there is no way to put on airs. The most ferocious lion in the jungle, when it meets the owner who raised it when it was young, can't help but run over and act like a baby. After the birthday party, Pete stayed and had dinner with Bai Wei, Murong Cheng, Muzi and the three babies. It's a small family dinner. The atmosphere was not bad, probably because of the language barrier. Pete didn't talk much. This is better, otherwise Murong Cheng will definitely think the other party is too glib. After eating, Bai Wei took Pete to see the plants and flowers she cultivated. Muzi and Murong Cheng leaned against the window, looking at a man and a woman in the distance. The people mom like seemed to be this type. Muzi looked at them and murmured. At first, it seemed familiar, but after a closer look, I found that Pete's facial features were actually somewhat similar to Master Mu's, especially the eyes and nose. A few years ago, Mu's Ishuan who tricked Bai Wei away was also very similar to Master Mu. If there was no age gap, they would be like twin brothers. Murong Cheng gave a faint hum, with a rare and leisurely expression. His childhood was distorted, and he dreamed of pursuing a quiet and warm family life. Now that he has a wife, a child, and his mother has found a home, Murong Cheng has obtained everything he wanted. As for who Pete looks like, he doesn't mind, as long as it's not that person. The relationship between Bai Wei and Pete gradually warmed up. In the bookstore run by Pete, there is a separate room dedicated to the fermentation of jam. The two often meet here to make various jams. The air is filled with a sweet and sour smell, like the smell of love, filling every pore, controlling breathing and heartbeat. Pete is always clumsy. He overturned the bowl, and the stirred fruit puree fell on the ground. Bai Wei accidentally stepped on it, slipped and fell into Pete's arms, and then there was a splash. The cups, dishes, and plates were all broken, and Bai Wei and Pete also fell heavily on the ground. Bai Wei hastily raised her upper body with her hands on her hands, looking nervously and apologetically at Pete, who was being treated as a human body cushion below. "Are you all right? Did you hurt from the fall?" Pete shook his head slightly, but didn't get up immediately. This angle of view is very subtle. Looking up, the light glows from behind her with a light halo, a bit dazzling, a bit dreamy, just like when he was sleeping on a sloped grass slope when he was young. She leaned over and said to him, "Musician, wake up, it's time to go back." His eyes were warm, he squinted and said softly, "Bai Wei, let's get married." Bai Wei didn't react. Huh. He raised his hand and gently stroked the fine lines at the corners of her eyes. She is old, and he is also old, but in his eyes, she is still that little girl in a white dress who knows nothing about the world. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life. Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1429. Bai Wei's cheeks turned red little by little. She should have realized what he just said, but she was too embarrassed to ask again. They're all grandmas now, so it's really embarrassing to talk about marriage. Embarrassed, Pete put his arms around her neck, pressed down, and kissed her lips. Between the lips and teeth, there is fruity freshness and sweetness, just like the memories of the year when the grass grew and the warbler flew. He kissed very lightly, slowly, and carefully. A tear flowed from the corner of his eye, and it disappeared into the temple for a moment. It's sad to say, I have loved her for so long, but I have never kissed her openly. Bai Wei and Pete decided to travel and get married. As a result, both of them are old, and there are no elder-in-laws who need banquets, so it seems dispensable to hold a formal wedding banquet. Secondly, Bai Wei has hardly traveled far in her life, let alone abroad, and Pete wants to take her on a trip around the world. Traveling around the world does not mean going all over the world, but choosing some well-known scenic spots and cities, and visiting each place. If so, it will take at least 3 to 5 months if you want to have a comfortable and fun time. Murong Cheng expressed his support for this. Bai Wei has been serving the old man or her son and grandson all her life, so she should go out and relax. What's more, no matter how filial the children are, they can't make up for the emotional shortcomings of their parents. On the day they went to the airport, the couple went to see them off. Murong Cheng stayed in the car and didn't follow him to the security checkpoint. He was also very considerate, worried that Bai Wei would feel uncomfortable in front of his son. When going through the security check, there was a little episode. Pete has a prosthetic leg, and the airport has express regulations for this kind of situation. The prosthetic needs to be disassembled for inspection to prevent prohibited items from being hidden in the prosthetic. The airport personnel took Bai Wei and Pete to the special inspection room, and after making sure that there was no problem, the two came out, and waved goodbye to Muzi, who was waiting outside through the security inspection machine. Muzi was a little surprised. Because no one ever mentioned that Pete had a prosthetic. Presumably it was Bai Wei who protected his privacy, so he didn't say anything. Actually it doesn't matter, although it's a prosthetic leg. Musa didn't feel that the prosthetic leg had any effect on his daily life after meeting Pete a few times. The most important thing is that Bai Wei likes it and Bai Wei is happy, so Muzi can accept it and show respect. Back in the car, Murong Cheng asked, "Are they boarding the plane?" "Well, we've already boarded the plane." Musa leaned comfortably on his shoulder, feeling deeply, traveling around the world is so romantic. Murong Cheng said with a smile, "If we like, we can go anytime." "It's different," Muzi said, "it's because you can go there anytime, so it doesn't seem so precious, but to mom, at this age, you can still go on a trip with the person you like and look around. It's really super romantic. It is also a trip. The feeling of the energetic young couple and the dusk partner who are hand in hand must be different. Murong Cheng reached out and brushed a strand of hair around her face behind her ears, and said with a smile, "Okay, then we will travel when we are old." The car drove out of the airport expressway, and the two of them were chatting about Baiwei and Pete along the way. Musey, I talked about Pete's legs. I didn't know it before. His walking posture is so natural. I must have practiced it for a long time. It's really surprising. Murong Cheng frowned. What? Musey, I glanced at him. Don't you know? It seems that Mom didn't tell you that Pete has a prosthetic leg. Because of this, he was delayed for a while at the airport. After she finished speaking, she found that Murong Cheng's face darkened a little bit and became extremely ugly. What's wrong with you? Musey, I didn't know why, but before she could ask clearly, Murong Cheng gritted his teeth and told the driver, "Go back to the airport." His voice was cold and sharp like ice shards on a knife blade. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1430. On the way, Musey held Murong Cheng's hand tightly all the time. She knew him, and it was difficult to control her emotions once she got angry. It doesn't matter for ordinary people to lose their temper once in a while, but Murong Cheng is the mayor now. If he loses his composure in public and is photographed, it will have a very bad impact. What's going on, Musey, I asked. Could it be that you misunderstood? Didn't Mu Zishuan die in the earthquake? How could it be Pete? At that time, she only knew that Baiwei was rescued by Mu Zishuan, and the hope of surviving the large-scale natural disaster was very slim, so Musey subconsciously thought that Mu Zishuan was dead, and Murong Cheng never mentioned it to her after that. Over this person. Now Murong Cheng said that Pete is Mu Zishuan. This is too bizarre. Murong Cheng's face was tense, and he said in a deep voice, "He didn't die, he broke a leg. I asked Wang Zhan to send him abroad for treatment. I didn't expect he would come back." Speaking of coming back, Murong Cheng's voice was extremely low, and each syllable seemed to burst out of the gap between the back molars. "Maybe you made a mistake." Musey trembled in fear. If it was really Mu Zishuan, wouldn't it be equivalent to Baiwei being cheated away again? Being cheated is a small matter, but the really bad thing is, Baiwei fell into Mu Zishuan's hands. Can she still come back? If it hadn't been for the earthquake, they might never have found Baiwei for the rest of their lives. Now that they are traveling and getting married, they are still traveling around the world. No matter how powerful Murong Cheng is, it's impossible for him to search for people all over the world. When they arrived at the airport, Murong Cheng asked the plane to stop taking off, but the plane had already flown a long way, and it was carrying a large number of foreign tourists, so it was impossible to return. Baiwei and Pete's first stop was Saipan, the United States. Murong Cheng could only urgently arrange a group of people to take the next flight to Saipan to find someone. Musey took this opportunity to check the boarding information, and saw the column of Pete's Chinese name, which read, Wei Bo Ku. The Chinese names foreigners give themselves are usually very strange, so she didn't pay much attention when she knew it, and now she understands what the name means. Wei Bo Ku, Chu Bao Yi, married Bei Wei. The difference in appearance is due to plastic surgery, and the bad language is to cover up the accent. He took advantage of Murong Cheng's carelessness to appear in Baiwei's life above board, and even concealed Murong Cheng's private investigation. This man. Musey couldn't comment at all. She was really thoughtful and bold. This situation is just like the last time when Baiwei was taken away by him. She deliberately used her credit card to leave consumption records in the adult products store, mocking Murong Cheng's incompetence and stupidity mercilessly. Murong Cheng would be furious. Musey glanced nonchalantly at Murong Cheng not far away, who was instructing his subordinates. If her prediction is correct, this group of people will only be in vain if they go. Muse Ishuan must have been prepared. Over the years, the successive births of children and warm family life have indeed dispelled part of Murong Cheng's vigilance. His temperament has gradually become calmer, and his way of handling affairs is no longer so extreme. Muse Ishuan just took advantage of this point and took advantage of the loophole. What should we do now? Lost my mother again. When I came to drop off the plane, I was happy, but when I went home, I was depressed and angry. The servants at home didn't know why, and they all worked with their breaths held in silence. Musei reluctantly raised her smiling face to accompany the child, while Murong Cheng went to the study alone. When it was time for dinner, he still hadn't come out, so the servant asked Musei cautiously if he needed to ask Mr. to come out for dinner. Musei sighed, "No need, tell the kitchen to leave a separate copy for him." If this happened, even if he took dinner to the study, he probably wouldn't have an appetite. Musei is not from the Mu family, her feelings towards Muse Ishuan are not as resistant as Murong Cheng's, but, she also has feelings for Bai Wei. She will miss her, her children, and grandma. Could it be that we will never see each other again?